Okay, volume 7 of the Bible story um, book set that I have. These 70-year-old books that I'm reading from. This is my volume 7. It has Mary on the front, a toddler Jesus, or a representation of a Mary and of a toddler Jesus. And on the back side, it has Joseph on the back. And we are at Part 2, Story 6, The Carpenter's Son. That's what it says. Okay? As Joseph and Mary started off once more for Nazareth, this time with Jesus close behind them, they had much to talk about. Can you hear Mary asking Jesus, "What did the doctors say to you, dear? And what do you say to them? Do tell us all about it." What Jesus told them we do not know, but he surely had a tale to tell about the rabbis and all the questions they had asked him, and that he asked them. Don't you wish that you could listen too? I do. Yeah, he was 12, and he really didn't go back until he's 33. So 11 more years. Uh, he stayed close to his mom. No, 21 more years. Yeah, he stayed close to his mom, if you think about it. If you actually do the math. Or, wait, 21. He's 33 when he passed away. Take the 3 because he did 3. So 29, 30s when he started. So, and you do the math, 9, 7. It'd still be 20 something years. He didn't, we lost 20 something years, 20 plus years about him. He probably just grew up and became a normal person. Okay? Well, let's see what the story says. No doubt, as they journeyed on, Mary and Joseph told how they had come to miss him that first night out of Jerusalem, and how they had sought for him high and low until they went at last to the temple. I am sure they were very sorry that they had lost sight of their precious son so long. They hadn't meant to. They had just been too wrapped up in other things and other people. Yeah, and that's how we are sometimes. How careful we must not let anything or anybody crowd him out of our thoughts. It is so easy to lose him, so hard to find him again. And of course, his brothers and sisters were, growing up too at that time. A few days later, they arrived in Nazareth, tired but happy, to home again, safe and sound. All the Bible says about the next 18 years of Jesus' life is found in this one text. Oh, so it was 18 years. He went down with them and came to Nazareth and was subject to them. And then it has a pause. And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. 18 years and 28 words. Yet how much they tell. He was subject unto them. This meant he was obedient and courteous to his parents, even in his teens, when some boys and girls come so much trouble. That's true. He did what he was asked to do cheerfully and graciously, never grumbling or complaining. His voice was often heard in song. Yeah, because they did that in the movie series I was watching. That he was singing when the little kids came around. Um, that's the episode I remember. Okay. Um, he found his greatest joy in making his parents happy, caring for their needs, and heeding slight their slightest wish, and of course, keeping up with the siblings and all that they needed to do. What a wonderful example set before us all. If you would like Jesus, uh, if you would be like Jesus, you must be kind, loving, and obedient to your parents, helping them all that you can. As the years went by, he increased in wisdom, thus meaning that he did not stop studying at 15 or 16, thinking he knew everything. He went on learning more and more about the Bible, about nature, about people. Yeah, and all visitors that came with different languages. I'm sure he went and tried to learn their languages, being human, uh, you know, go and learn. And I'm sure he hooked up with the town's priest or the town's Levites, and he would go and talk to them. I mean, this is just me throwing things out, but that's what he would do because I'm sure they had their own. Because even today, we have some little communities have their own pastor and churches. Like here, we have got so many churches. And then that one time we went to Charleston, South Carolina, it was one street that it was just full of churches, nothing but churches. And that's just a thought walked in my head. Okay, let's go on with the story. There were no high schools and universities then, such as most young people of today can attend if they wish. Nor was there any public library in his own town where he could go and borrow books on any subject as you can. They might have been. We don't really know because they could have been if you think about it. Because let me stop here for a second. Even if right now, if you lived in ancient, uh, let's say ancient France, uh, you would still have a priest there, and he would have books for him to study. So, that's just my thought come in my head. And of course, he probably had a Roman library that he probably would be curious to go. I mean, he still probably did. It's just nobody believed it. Nobody wants to acknowledge it. Okay. That was just my tidbit. Okay. Yet, by reading all he could find in the synagogue. See? See, he did have synagogues. So they were in the temples and the synagogues. By exploring the secrets of nature, by mixing with all sorts of people, and above all, by talking with God in prayer, he became wiser than anyone who ever lived on earth, either before or after him. See, so the synagogue, the church, the church synagogues, the synagogues would still have libraries and stuff, which is true. So my little thought was actually vindicated. Okay, let's get back to the story. He also increased in, and then it has the pause, stature. So, in other words, he grew tall and he grew strong. This meant that he was not a weakling. He paid attention to his health. He ate well and took lots of exercise. Knowing that he was to be the Messiah, he understood that he would need great strength to stand the strain. So he never let himself begin bad, begin bad habits of any kind. Yeah. Plus, he helped his dad. And carrying planks and logs, it's hard work. Okay. No doubt, other boys in Nazareth did many foolish things that weakened their bodies and spoiled their characters, just as smoking and drinking spoil young people today. But Jesus would have nothing to do with them. His life was dedicated to a great purpose, as yours and mine should be. Because of all this, he increased also in favor with God and man. And then it has an illustration here, and it looks like Hutchinson's down at the bottom, of a carpenter, a mother, and a son up at the top. And it's the book's printing, not my camera. How blurry it is, but it's just the way it is. Okay. Okay. All heaven was watching this noble youth. From the moment the angels had sung of his birth, they had watched over him everywhere he went, just as they had rejoiced over the sweetest baby ever born. Now they glorified in this grandest youth who ever walked the earth. Not only was heaven pleased with him, for miles around Nazareth he was respected by men, women, and children alike. He loved he loved they loved him because he was so gentle, kind, and friendly. They loved him because he was so clean, pure, and truthful. They loved him because he was so unselfish, so sympathetic, and so thoughtful of others. As the carpenter's son, in the carpenter shop, sorry, in the carpenter shop, he put his best to every job that Joseph gave for him to do. And what a pity it is that not one thing he has made kept been kept for us to see. Yeah, because he probably made a lot of things, and we have never ever seen it. And then they give examples. A baby's crib, perhaps a doll's bed, an armchair, or a chest of drawers. If such things exist, made by Jesus' own hands, it would be worth a fortune. Yeah, it would. But it would also be the finest example of faultless work for boys and girls today. How square would be the saw cuts, how exact the metering, metering, how exact the measurements. That's what that means. How smooth the surface, how invisible the joints. The finest cabinet makers in the world would say this is a work of a master craftsman. And then it has this 2 page with this text in the middle is by Manning D.V. Lee. And it would be, yeah, it really, the text threw a question in. Sorry, I got an eye that kind of twists, so That's why things look a little twisted. And there, okay, how invisible the joints. Interesting. Okay, sometimes perhaps when his 18th, 19th, or 20th, okay, sometimes perhaps when he was 18, 19, or 20 or 20, Jesus would wonder why he had to stay in a carpenter shop so long, with the world waiting for the message he had to give. Why waste time bending over a bench, planing wood, sharpening saws and chisels? Yet it was not a time wasted. By striving always to do perfect work, he was preparing himself for the greater task ahead of him. In his heart, he was sure he had come from heaven to earth to reveal God's love for men. And this meant showing love in all its beauty at home, in the workshop, in the synagogue, along the city streets, anywhere, everywhere. It meant also setting an example of perfection in everything he did or said. He would never let himself make one mistake, or let one poor, unworthy piece of work come from his hand, or let one kind word, or let one unkind word fall from his lips. And yeah, he had working as a carpenter. You met all kinds of people because many people needed things to be built, worked, and being in a coastal town like Nazareth, he had, he probably had a very good reputation for being a good carpenter. Him and his brothers and his sisters, because I'm sure they learned from Joseph. Okay, let me get back to the thing. What an example he set us. Today, nearly 2,000 years later, he wants us to follow his steps, to strive to live as he did. If we do, we too will increase in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. And then this is a Diwali uh, watercolor. I'm saying it's a watercolor. And of course, he doesn't have a beard. Or the character, the carpenter, didn't have one. And of course, being a Nazarite, um, they probably did let their beard grow. And then they had to, knot it. And the same with their hair because they were a special people. So I would think he would have the same little locks that Samson had on his head. That's just me. Just me. Have the same locks that Samson had, and of course Samson had a beard, and of course, uh, let's see, when my husband was would let it would grow to here, and that would be a month's worth, and it probably was way down, and he had to braid it and keep it out because these planes and stuff, it's easy to get caught and trapped. Uh, but I digress. It's the art in me clicking and everything. And that was part two, story 6. And that is the end of part 2 also. So I'm going to take the break, fix this up, put the stories, the name of the stories on them, and then we'll start with the rest. And we got 2 more parts to go through. So this is a halfway point in this book. And of course, we're in the New Testament. And this is the halfway point, and I'm going to stop, and we'll be back in just a bit.